the rules. We're not going to punish someone if it's in their bloodstream, but you can't show up and be impaired.
The unique thing about those in the union, anybody with a collective bargaining agreement, is they get to dictate. They get to develop a contract that dictates how many nanograms or what levels of THC or metabolites are allowed in the contract. So once they start negotiating that, that's not just like an arbitrary, or that it doesn't have to be the DOT standards that they're using.
It's changed from that to just being allowed to do it, not try to put some kind of number.
It's completely unnecessary.
The law is impaired, as broad as that is.
Yes.
Right. You know, they should put cameras up and observe the behavior so it can be challenged later on. They should probably do that for safety anyways. So we saw you on the floor and you were wobbly.
Just fire them. You can fire someone for basically anything in the state of Michigan.
Not in a union shop.
Well, that's different. That's a little different.
Well, I'm saying if
people are talking about, you can negotiate that.
If we're going to have a fight about whether marijuana use is a thing that an employee could engage in, like alcohol, in the same way as alcohol, meaning they're not drinking in the parking lot. Maybe they aren't. I mean, coming in drunk. Maybe a beer.
I don't know.
Maybe a beer. I don't know. Whatever.
I don't think the auto companies are the ones you need to convince, or the manufacturers, whoever the people are working for. I think it's their insurance companies. Until you can convince those insurance companies that those drug tests are not necessary, they are not going to fucking budge.
It's the first thing they do if you get hurt on the job. And I was a union member, and I know the joke was, if I got hurt on the job, if I got my head cut off, I would carry it home and then go to the hospital on my own time. Because if they send you on a job-related, the first thing they do is a blood draw or a piss test.
Now, in my contract, we didn't have that. We had an accident alone doesn't constitute just cause.
Wow.
So, I mean, we had people who literally caused
like
a lot of damage that were using methadone or other prescribed medications that caused all kinds of problems. But I do know people who have. They had a medical marijuana card. They worked in a shop that was non-union. They had a zero-tolerance policy. He was sitting in his high-low, got tapped by somebody else who was drunk. As you said, come in from out at lunch and had a few drinks. Tapped him. They both got sent out for a drug test, and they both lost their jobs. In the meantime, my buddy who had his medical marijuana card was an exemplary employee. He was there every day. He worked whatever kind of overtime whenever they asked. But he ended up losing his job.
Well, I know the unionized state employees get a one chance.
Do you know that's contrary to state law? That looks the MMA and 3.3 million voters.
Yes.
And says, fuck you, because no employee of any institution was intended to lose their job, not be able to work, lose a license, anything like that
for that specific reason.
Exactly.
Yep, but that's certainly not the way it worked out for Joseph Casillas.
Casillas, no.
Well, let's talk about the difference. We're talking about a Walmart, and it's a national company. The jurisdiction, because they participate in interstate commerce, can be taken to the federal court.
They sued the manager, and they said, and then the court determined the manager was just a puppet of the corporate office, which was out of state, so it had to be a.
Well, yeah, the jurisdiction is the federal court, and they removed it there, and that would have been the strategy. But we're talking about the union in the state of Michigan that, in theory, they're not writing laws and protections that apply to federal law as much as the state law. I mean, we're in the state of Michigan. They're union jobs unique to the state of Michigan. The registered unions in the state of Michigan. We're not going to start
but not all of the companies is exclusively in Michigan that they represent.
Yeah, but the people that are living in Michigan should be.
I agree with you.
First and foremost, demanding that they get the rights and protections under Michigan law.
Absolutely,
not subject to the laws of the.
But then we go into federal law or employee law being federal.
It's a union negotiating thing. I mean, the fact that I don't know whether. I mean, my point is this: I hear you, and I know you're not.
I would swing for the fences for it. I know that.
You're defending the institution, but you would agree that it's not. It should be more advanced on this. And I say
absolutely.
I say that just because we know from this last, it's probably uncomfortable for a lot of people that. But they supported Pat Miles. Pat Miles was not pro legalization, barely understood anything about cannabis at all, was not knowledgeable in any way, shape, or form.
It
was problematic in that regard for a lot of reasons. But
he prosecuted. people for
But
for following state law.
And the union came out and was trying to support Pat Miles at the convention. And what happened? Who are the people? The people that were in support of it were the union and the old garb, retired sheriffs and police officers wing of the Democratic Party.
Right.
And while I take great pride in saying the potheads and the gays won the convention.
True, and won the convention.
Kicked everyone's ass.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, we did.
And
it's awesome.
And they should, for that reason.
I think that the idea is evolving, and I know one of the things that I've been trying to do is work out relationships that are going to, again, merge the two worlds, because I do believe that a large portion of the memberships wants to see legal marijuana. They want us to be protected when they go home and have their joint before they go to bed or eat their edibles or whatever they're doing. And I don't think that one of the things that I feel like I run into a lot is people genuinely believe that we wanted this law to give us the ability to use marijuana at work. And, you know, I have to remind you that that's not even...
At least not get fired for it. Not have it be something that's considered per se contraband, and by the mere presence of your system is such an outrageous crime. Right. You know, that as opposed to just being like, you know, whatever alcohol's in your system from the night before drinking that they wouldn't take issue with. Jamie, we're going to say something?
No. I was going to confirm it, but you confirmed it. And that's
I had a revelation here. Is it possible that, despite my maybe naivety, that unions are Democratic? Is it possible they have been voting Republican? And
the membership, you know what? I was talking about that earlier in Monroe, especially. We had a large portion of people who voted for Prop 1 that also voted for candidates that were opposed to Prop 1. So I think that reflects our membership too. I think our membership did much of that, and I think it all falls back on education. And, you know, I felt like when I was a part of the organization, I wanted to provide the best education to people who really didn't know what they were talking about. And to have people insist who had never used marijuana or haven't used marijuana in 25 years on telling people what marijuana does to you. And I didn't necessarily always agree with the message that was coming through, because here I am, a functioning, successful marijuana user patient, you know, and sometimes... the message that we got sent to us wasn't all that positive. And because of that, the education stopped, right? Now I think what I would consider entry-level knowledge on medical marijuana for somebody in this room is still yet to be discovered by some of those people.
Let me ask a couple questions about the union, from what you know.
Yeah.
Short answers, short questions, short answers. Diversity, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
To what extent?
To the extent that potheads
I've been a token white guy a couple of times.
Women involved?
Women.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we participate in a lot of constituency groups.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we participate in a group with the Latinos, with Pride at Work, and my friend Cynthia Thornton, who is now part of the Michigan AFL-CIO board. The Women's Council is huge for the UAW.
All right, let me ask you this.
I was also going to say, and it's the only time in my life where I was ever paid exactly the same as a man was when I had a union contract. The only time.
TSA?
No, not TSA. No.
Okay.
TSA was non-union. I worked
what was the?
I worked at Farmer Jack for 11 years. I worked for Bush's. I worked in supermarkets.
Okay, but when you were in the union, that's when the pay scale was the same.
Exactly
across
the same. And I worked for a non-union market, and it was not. I mean, they were paying the men $2-3 an hour more than the women in the non-union.
Were you allowed to talk about your wages?
You signed a handbook that said you can't talk about it, but everybody did. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they can't do that.
A lot of those handbook stuff is not enforceable. We used to make people do that at Art Van too, sign a lot of things that made them believe that they were under certain restrictions.
Trying to circumvent some problems.
No, TSA was non-union, and they said it was because of the Patriot Act. That it was top security, they couldn't be union, you know. Yeah, so we were non-union. It was a terrible situation.
Patriot Act.
Low pay, real crappy training, really bad news.
And they didn't like pot
Terrible.
smoking very much, it sounds like.
Well, they did not like me pot smoking. Hence, I no longer am with them.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
It was real unfortunate. Zero tolerance.
Yeah.
What about?
I like pot smoking.
I do too.
Actually, it was a
What about
terrible
political?
job, so
I
it's
mean,
not-
obviously, they have a slate or like a preferred, expected political vote that ye shall cast.
There's
Am
a
I right about
branch,
that?
there's an arm of the UAW. It's a political group that kind of screens everybody, and they build relationships with those folks. So I would
You're
say
saying
that,
candidates that they support.
yes, but that group changes, and so does the people that they end up supporting, like on
Of
a
course,
rotated
but I'm
basis.
saying they expect. But I'm saying, okay, you're saying that's the filter of who to support. But from the filter to the members, they are providing.
Members don't often vote the slate that's
No.
issued to them.
Right.
I mean,
As a matter of fact, in these days and ages, right now, a lot of people are voting against what the
Right.
They
UAW.
didn't vote for Pat.
No, they did not.
No.
Good.
And I mean, there's a lot of chaos going on within the Chrysler department
Fuck Pat
specifically, where there's a lot of.
How do we know? How do we know? I mean, you didn't.
About what? What's going on in Chrysler? Because
No, that they didn't vote for Pat Miles, and we're loyal soldiers.
Fuck Pat
You could
Miles.
see we lined
From
up
the
at
vote, from the vote at the convention.
Yeah, you could see you had to do it publicly. You had to stand in line.
Yeah.
We saw where everybody stood in line.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say
There was
that they
a
did
20%
that at
gap.
that convention.
Well, there was more people than just Pat Miles and his mom who voted for him. There was like thousands
No,
of
there
people.
was a 20% gap.
Yeah, there was like
At least.
30
So
other
not
people.
a-
That's
huge.
what I was told after the fact
It was huge.
by.
Okay, but it's still a lot. It could have been every union person.
No.
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 So
No.
it
What do you
wa- it's
mean?
not scientific. We just believe it because
We don't need-
believe the
we
people
don't
in the
need
union are
science.
smart and they looked at
The
Pat Miles and
science,
saw him as
Jamie.
the dud that he is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
The
voted
science
for
is
Dana.
this. The science is that based on normal turnout at the convention, the union votes and they win. And the union votes and they win all the time. But what happened here is that 4,000 people or 2,500 people came and added those additional votes, which offset that vote of the union
right.
that usually carries a day. Because
Yeah.
you had 2,500 to 3,000 or,
In the snow.
the people within
we
the
had
party.
a lot of unprecedented
Well, that's what I'm saying. But
activity
let's
this
you
year.
take
Yeah,
2,500
that was
people,
great.
potheads and gays, and I'm just
I
saying
never
that.
joined a party and I joined and showed up. That
I'm
was
saying though, the
example
bringing
of what a lot of people
of that
did.
number of people to the party wins, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because within the party,
yes.
if she gets 30%,
No.
and she doesn't get the union, it doesn't matter. I don't know that the science says that the union voted for her. That's all I'm saying. And so
And I admitted that, but but then I said I believe
just,
in the people of the UAW.
Yes,
Just
at the
see
end of
right
the
I
day,
saw
bullshit.
people
Well,
that I
I'm just
personally
I'm
know.
just saying, listen, I'm saying they could have voted for
Dana, so-
cannabis.
We don't have
They could
the
have not
data.
voted. I'm just wondering. Like, I'm wondering if there's
We just don't have
I believe, especially with in regards to Dana, a large portion of the union members who believed in gay rights and cannabis rights make up a large constituency.
members versus leadership. That's where we were
Well, that's
hung up
it.
on.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
I'm hung up
Yeah,
on members
absolutely,
and leadership.
absolutely. Yeah, I
Which
don't
is that
generally
that's a
talk
tragedy.
about what leadership
How can they
does.
be leaders if they're not accurately right? Like if they're screening candidates and they're coming with Pat Miles, good for the unions, and then you just turn around and vote in favor
and
of
I have to say, I mean, in that regard, generally what we do is we have our locals do the screenings of these people. And for this particular election, this is the first one in 15 years that I wasn't a part of one of the screenings for the candidates. So I was really shocked. Because you called me a year before any of this had happened. I had never heard of Pat Miles, and up until that convention, I was kind of convinced that nobody else had heard of Pat Miles, and that people had heard folks like me within the union talking about Dana Nessel, because it was I wasn't the only union guy that was out there blowing the horn for her. I think it was Jaron Garza, right? He was out there.
Jaron was definitely
for sure.
yeah. Jaron didn't make the convention though, but his friends did. I mean,
Absolutely.
and they absolutely
I
voted
know.
for Dana.
Fuck Pat Miles.
It was a spectacular event, nonetheless.
Absolutely. It was a great display, too. Like you said, on behalf of the potheads and the gays, they showed up
Well,
and
I
they
say
turned
that,
out.
It sounds disparaging, but I'm including myself within that group, and and saying it with pride, and being proud that
Oh, yeah.
people became motivated, and they what were it,
Engaged and activated.
like military, what do you call it?
Deployed.
Grease lightning.
Yeah.
That's right.
Kind of, but not really. There's a certain word.
Latrine.
What? Latrine?
Latrine?
Kind of.
Is that it?
Said
Pat Miles is
Gallows?
Mobilized.
in
Maybe
the
mobilized.
latrine.
There you go.